My name is Nicole. I'm 25. I was supposed to get married in less than 24 hours, but instead I was standing barefoot in my own hallway listening to another woman laugh in my bedroom. And the worst part? I chose to come home. A stranger had whispered just hours earlier, "Go home early and you'll understand everything." I thought it was nonsense. Pre-wedding nerves, jealousy, a cruel joke. But here's the truth. If I hadn't listened, I would have married a man who was already living a life I knew nothing about. And what I found behind that door? That sentence didn't just interrupt my thoughts, it replaced them. Before we get down to business, give this a like, subscribe, and after you listen to the story, let me know, have you ever been in a situation like the one the narrator found herself in the day before her wedding? I was standing in front of the mirror. My wedding dress fitted perfectly, the soft ivory lace hugging my skin like a promise I had spent months believing in. Around me, the bridal suite buzzed. Laughter, the hum of hair dryers, the clink of champagne glasses. Everything was exactly how it should be, except for her. I caught her reflection before I fully turned. Tall, elegant, completely still. She wasn't smiling. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice tightening despite my effort to sound calm. She stepped closer, just enough that I could see the sharpness in her eyes. Not cruel, certain. "You don't have much time," she said quietly. "Trust yourself. Go home early today and you'll understand everything. Go home." And then, just like that, she walked away, slipping between stylists and bridesmaids like a shadow dissolving into light. "Nicole," my best friend Lila touched my arm, "you look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a laugh. Just nerves. But here's the truth I didn't say out loud. Nerves don't feel like warnings, they feel like fear. This felt like something else, something deliberate. I tried to shake it off, I really did. An hour later, I was at the reception hall, checking centerpieces, adjusting seating charts, approving the final lighting. Everything had Magnus's signature touch, grand, polished, flawless. "Magnus really outdid himself," the planner said, smiling. "You're lucky." The word echoed strangely, because suddenly I remembered something small, something I had ignored. Last week, when I asked Magnus about a payment discrepancy, he had laughed it off too quickly. "Relax, Nicole, you worry too much," he'd said, kissing my forehead. At the time, I melted. Now it felt rehearsed. "Are you okay?" Lila asked again, quieter this time. I looked around the room, at the perfect flowers, the expensive details, the life I thought I was stepping into. And then the words of that strange woman sounded in my head again. "Go home." My chest tightened. "I'm feeling a little worn out. Lila, could you please take a look at the rest yourself? I trust you completely as my best friend. I need to go for a walk, get some fresh air." Sometimes the smallest decision, the one that makes no sense, changes everything. And as I walked out into the cooling evening, one thought kept repeating in my mind. If I'm wrong, I lose nothing. But if I'm right, I didn't finish that thought, because deep down, I already knew. The house was dark. Not empty, wrong. That was the first thing I felt as I stepped inside. The air was thick, unfamiliar, like I had walked into someone else's life by mistake. "Magnus?" I called out. No answer, just silence. Here's the moment you need to understand. Silence isn't always peaceful. Sometimes it's a warning. I took another step, then another, and that's when I heard it. A sound. Soft, breathless, a woman's laugh. My entire body locked. "No, no, that's not," I whispered, shaking my head as if denial could rewrite reality. But then it came again. Closer, clearer, upstairs. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to walk out, get in my car, pretend none of this existed. Because here's the truth, there's a second in life when you can still protect your heart. After that, there's no going back. I chose to go forward. My heels hit the floor too loudly, so I slipped them off, clutching them tightly as if they could anchor me. Barefoot, I climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. The voices grew louder. A whisper, then his voice. Magnus. Soft, intimate, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. "I missed you," he murmured. I stopped breathing. The bedroom door creaked open under my trembling hand. And then, everything shattered. Magnus stood there, my fiancé, the man who had held my face that morning and whispered, "Tomorrow you'll be my wife." And wrapped around him was a woman in silk lace lingerie, her body pressed against his like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Magnus? My voice barely existed. They froze. He turned first. The moment his eyes met mine, the color drained from his face. "Nicole, wait, this isn't—" But I wasn't listening. I was staring at her. "Who is she?" I whispered, my voice breaking despite everything I was trying to hold together. "This is your fiancé?" she said sharply, looking at Magnus. "You said she wouldn't be here." My stomach dropped. "Whatever this is," I said quietly, my voice steadier now, "it's bigger than you think." His face tightened. "Nicole, please." But I was already turning away. "Nicole, this isn't what you think," Magnus's voice cracked behind me, but it sounded distant, hollow, like it was already too late to matter. Because here's the truth no one prepares you for. Some moments don't break your heart slowly. They shatter it in a single, irreversible second. The woman moved first, fast, efficient. She grabbed her dress from the floor, pulling it over her body with practiced ease. No panic, no shame, just urgency. She brushed past me, her shoulder grazing mine, and for a split second, she paused. Our eyes met, and then she was gone. No apology, no explanation, just escape. "Nicole, please, listen to me." Magnus's voice stepped forward, reaching for me. I flinched. "Don't touch me." The words came out colder than I expected, stronger, and that's when I saw it. Fear in his eyes, not guilt, fear, not of losing me, but of losing control. I let out a hollow laugh, the sound tearing at my throat. "Explain what? That I just interrupted something I wasn't supposed to see? It's complicated." "No," I cut him off, my voice rising, shaking now. "It's not. You're a liar." His silence confirmed everything. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not broken, replaced. I turned and walked out. Not running, not crying, just done. The cold air outside hit me like a slap, but I welcomed it. It kept me upright, kept me from collapsing. And then, "She didn't tell you everything, did she?" I froze. Slowly, I turned. She stood there again, the very woman who warned me and told me to go home. Calm, composed, waiting. "My name is Evelyn," she said softly. I stared at her, my chest heaving. "Who are you?" Her gaze didn't waver. "I'm the woman he married a year ago." The world tilted. "What?" "He didn't just cheat on you," she continued, her voice steady, almost too steady. "He did the same thing to me, a fake one." I shook my head, stepping back. "No, that's not possible. Magnus, he—" "Told you you were special," she finished quietly. "That you were different?" My breath caught, because he had. Every word, exactly the same. Tears finally burned my eyes, but they didn't fall. Not yet. Evelyn said, "They took everything from me, fraudulently took almost all of my money, him and his wife, the woman you just saw, Harper." My heart dropped. "Wife?" She nodded. "They do this together." And then, 6 months later, he just divorced me. By the time I realized I'd lost my money, it was already too late. You think betrayal ends when you catch them, but sometimes that's only the beginning. Evelyn stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "And now, Nicole," a pause, "you're next." I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because something stronger had taken its place, clarity. I sat there in the dark that evening, still replaying that awful scene with Magnus that I'd discovered a few hours earlier. Laptop glowing in front of me like an interrogation lamp. My hands trembled, not from heartbreak, but from what I was about to uncover. "Let's see who you really are, Magnus," I whispered. Bank statements, transfers, receipts. At first, it looked normal. Payments for the venue, catering, decorations. Then I noticed something. Every single payment came from my accounts. My chest tightened. No, that's not... I scrolled faster. Dates, amounts, authorizations, all mine. But I never approved half of them. And then, there it was, a transfer. $350,000 to Magnus's personal account. My breath stopped. This is the moment trust turns into evidence, and evidence destroys everything. I clicked deeper. Messages. One thread caught my eye. His name, saved under a contact I didn't recognize. I opened it, and my world didn't just crack, it collapsed. "She's perfect," Magnus had written. "Doesn't question anything. A total gullible sucker." My stomach twisted violently. I pressed my hand to my mouth, but it didn't stop the sound that escaped, a broken, choking laugh that turned into something dangerously close to a sob. "I trusted you," I whispered. But here's the truth that hit harder than anything. He didn't just betray me. He studied me, used me, calculated every move. The next morning, I met Evelyn. She slid a folder across the table. "You're not the first," she said. Inside, documents, screenshots, bank records, other women, other lives destroyed. I looked up, my voice steady now. "We don't let him do this again." Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line. "No, we end him." That's when we walked into the office of one of the top lawyers, Stephen Crawford. He listened, carefully, silently, then leaned back. "This isn't just fraud. This is a criminal enterprise. Can we stop him?" I asked. His eyes met mine, sharp, certain. Stephen said, "We don't stop him." A pause. "We bury him." And in that moment, something shifted inside me completely. The woman who had been betrayed, gone, replaced by someone else, someone who wasn't afraid anymore, because the hunt had officially begun, and this time, I was the one in control. Courtrooms don't care about charm, and Magnus, he had built his entire life on it. He stood there in a tailored suit, the same man who once made promises sound like truth, but today, his hands trembled. This is where masks don't slip, they shatter. "Mr. Hale," Stephen's voice cut through the silence, sharp as glass. "Did you or did you not transfer $350,000 from my client's account without her consent?" Magnus hesitated. 1 second too long. "Yes," he muttered. The word echoed like a verdict before the verdict. Beside me, Evelyn exhaled slowly. I felt her hand brush mine, not for comfort, but for confirmation. We had him. Then Harper was called. She walked in confident and left destroyed. "He planned everything," she said under oath, her voice cracking. "The weddings, the lies, the money." Magnus turned to her, eyes wide. "Harper, don't!" But it was already over. Betrayal always circles back. Even partners become witnesses. The judge didn't take long. Fraud, financial exploitation, criminal conspiracy. Each word landed like a hammer. The sentence was harsh. 10 years each. Silence. Then chaos. Magnus collapsed into his chair. Harper covered her face. Their empire gone in seconds. And me? I didn't smile. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Justice doesn't feel loud. It feels quiet, final. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, lighter. Evelyn looked at me. "We actually did it." I nodded. But as I walked away, one thought stayed with me. Not about Magnus, not about the money, about myself. I didn't lose a wedding. I escaped a life that would have destroyed me. And if you're watching this right now, ask yourself, would you have opened that door then or walked away?
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.